What's going on?
Good, good.
Iota Phi Theta. Glad to be here, brother Donald. How you doing?
I'm blessed, brother. How are you?
I'm happy, man. I'm excited to be back. I know it's been a while. We haven't talked in a while. We haven't talked to the people in a while.
True.
But Iota Talk, the South has something to say. Episode 10, the 2024 election. So uh, happy to be here, man. Let's get it popping. We're live this time though, right? So this is a level to the shit, as they say. We're momentous moment for ours, as we go.
Indeed.
Um, moving up, we have the election going on tonight. We'll continue to grow. Shout out to brother Gibbs for setting this up. I appreciate him. Everything, all the work he's doing behind the
Absolutely.
scenes
Thank you so
right
much,
now.
man.
And
Thank you.
shout out to the brothers in the comments who already started following us, who already started attending the live stream. We appreciate you here. This will be, as you saw before, a nonpartisan conversation about the 2024 election. We're going to stay live as long as we can. It's a pretty good chance that we won't know a winner tonight before we sign off. But needless to say, we'll have a conversations around the elections, around politics, around life in general. And brothers who are watching us right now, feel free to put your questions in the comment, any kind of topic you want to talk about, anything you want us to discuss live here. Feel free to let us know. We're all monitoring those comments live. But Donald, man, it's good to see you again. How's life been?
Life is life, man. Life is life. Everything has been blessed. A lot of things happening, career wise, personal, but I'm just happy that God has blessed me so much. Um, Healthy family, healthy children, um, and and a thriving extended family of iotas that I have with me. So I'm just ready to rock, man. Everything's been blessed. What about you, D? How things been going for you?
It's been nonstop, man. It's been crazy. The last month's been insane. As you know, did get married last weekend. So
Congrats, congrats.
for my life, I didn't
Yep, yep.
happen. Wasn't really, something I was actually looking for. But hey, out to brother DJ Holland, Dijon
Wow,
Holland,
wow, wow.
RP South. All right, welcome in. But yeah, man. So just busy working a lot. School, multiple things going on. Spread super thin, but hopefully we feel some relief coming soon in the year
Absolutely.
2025. So we're looking forward to that transition. So, but everything's been good. I can't complain, man. So
Good, good.
hopefully we'll find out tonight how things go. What was crazy was my wife's cousin called her earlier today. Was like, hey, you guys have water and everything. So what are you talking about? Like, well, are you ready in case you can't go back to work for a couple of days? Like, you guys have to stay in the house for 3 or 4 days after this. So you guys. So at first she didn't understand, but like some people are very very concerned about the outcome. There are some individuals that think
Yeah,
that it might be Armageddon to say
I heard
the
the
big
same thing.
outcomes
I heard
of
the same thing.
so I don't think it'll be that drastic, right? I don't think it'll be too bad. But you never know, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
we have gallons and gallons of water here in this house. We definitely doomsday prep.
Good. Good.
Paranoid, I'm prepared. It's a difference.
This was
But
up. This was up.
it'll be good. I think the election will be fine. There won't be any issues. So
Yeah, I
uh,
don't think I don't think there's going to be any issues. I think there are some things that are, I believe, my personal opinion, pretty straightforward. I
yeah,
think there are going to be some seats that's going to flip in the House, some seats are going to flip in the Senate. Already one has already flipped. It was expected in West Virginia, um, and that was, like I said, expected to happen. Um, and we'll definitely see what happens. I don't, as you said before, I do not believe we're going to know who will win the state of the race regarding the presidency tonight. Um, I do believe that we will come pretty close to knowing something late tonight. We won't be on late that late tonight, but we'll definitely.
I got class. I'm going to bed.
Yeah, I got work. I got to get up super early in the morning, but I think we will definitely know by the time we wake up. Um, the how it'll be much closer than it was in 2020.
Mm,
The ballots are coming in smoother. They're counting it faster. It seems as if it's much more efficient. So I think that's a good thing. But we should know something relatively early tomorrow. at least coming close.
Yeah.
And it looks like so far, in regards to the presidential race, excuse me, that so far it's gone as expected. And so is the Senate, and so is the House. So we'll definitely see what happens. I think it's going to be interesting couple hours that we're going to have here to see what happens when the majority of these polls close in the next 2 hours.
So we already have Bernie Sanders projected to win his race right now.
Yep.
Also saw the incumbent Republican senator out of state of Vermont is also expected to win his race.
Mhm.
Small things, let's see your point, they're coming in slowly. But I
Yeah.
think this would be a an interesting election. Depending on who you are, depending on where you are, you have your different viewpoints on not just who should be the winner, but how everything's gone so far, right?
Agreed.
I saw a post that said that this is the most expensive race ever, right? I think they
Yeah.
spent about
Yeah.
$8 billion, $2 billion more than the race in 2020.
2020. Yeah.
Which personally, I think the fact that we spend billions of dollars on ads and campaigns is
Mhm.
insane to me. I
Yeah.
just think about how many people that could feed, right, or how much change could come from those $1 billion, but instead they're spent mainly on advertisements, right?
Right.
So that's an insane concept. I think we kind of is part of inherently a part of our political cycle, right?
It is.
That's the way to reach people. But
It
you
is.
depend on vote, you have to use those means of marketing in order to get your name out there, your policies out there, and
Right.
so hopefully we can get some change to that. But of course, I don't see that coming anytime soon.
No, I don't think finance reform legislation will come out anytime soon. I think the both the two-tier party system, if you will, two-party system, the Democrats, Republicans don't want to change it to a certain extent. They understand the power of the dollar in regards of advertisement, and not just your normal advertisement as in the past in television and other ads of that nature, but social media ads are huge. Streaming ads are even bigger than that. When most people are streaming more than ever before,
Yeah,
the being inundated with information, whether you want it or not, is extremely critical and important. But I don't believe that it's going to change anytime soon. I believe that it may just be the exact same amount, maybe a little less in 2028, depending on who wins this election. And but it's not going to change, man. I don't see it changing anytime soon. And that's the unfortunate part about it. There's so many things you can do. Feed the homeless. I mean, they're starving. Provide homes for the homeless.
right.
Um, try to do more in regards of helping those that are in need. Um, but priorities have shifted so much over the past few decades that this is the state of affairs in which we're in currently, and that's the unfortunate part within politics.
Yeah. And so, thinking about tonight's election, you have different states that will be the primary viewpoint or for primary like focus, right? So you have states like
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, other swing states, Michigan,
Yep.
I think New York, some states in the northern region.
Hmm.
So what are you thinking will be the outcome for some of those swings, those key states that both candidates need? So you have, again, you have Pennsylvania. Are we thinking? Do you feel that will be a state that is leaning more to the left side, Republican, or you think there will be more right? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question, our brother Johnson. I would say this. I think, in my personal opinion, looking at the state of affairs now, Pennsylvania may lean a little bit left, ever so slightly. I believe Michigan leans ever so slightly to the left. I do believe that Arizona will be red. It's going to be flipped red, in my personal opinion. Um, Utah, which was up in the air 4 years ago, I think is going to be firmly entrenched as a Republican state. Um, Nevada will be a critical state as well. Um, and I'm very interested, believe it or not, in the state of Iowa
Okay.
and and reading up on the information from one of the most well respected um, individuals who do um, polls, and Seltzer, if there is a true uptick in regards of um, Democrats coming out to vote much more in droves as ever before, as opposed to what happened in 2008, where Barack Obama flipped Iowa into a blue state. If that does happen, I think it's going to lead into um, 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 Vice President and President and a whole, possibly President elect um, um, Kamala Harris to happen. Um, and that's if that's truly the case. And if the issue is women's rights, abortion perspective, and healthcare, I do believe that the possibility of it flipping, and if the ads are working, if the phone calls are working, if the canvases are working, um, that's going to be a pretty big shift, dynamic shift in the concept of the race. But that's how I'm looking at it right now. Pennsylvania to the left, I think Nevada maybe to the left, Utah,
Mhm.
Arizona to the right. Um, I I don't know if I truly believe if Georgia is truly in the race. I think it's going to be very close in Georgia. Um, but I think we'll definitely see in the next 3.5 minutes when some of the polls are closing up. A large swath of polls will be closed in the next 3.5 minutes. I think this is going to be the real litmus test
Okay.
for what's going to happen. And if Harris can win North Carolina, like I think she could, Iowa, um, Pennsylvania may not happen till later on tonight. Michigan, um, later on, Nevada. I think she would have a good inside track. If she loses Pennsylvania, I don't truly believe there is a path for her, but
Okay.
we'll definitely see.
Yeah, we definitely will, right? I think it's always interesting. Like speaking, I know a lot of brothers here in Iota. A lot of us either have a military background or thinking about going in the direction that we're currently in.
Hmm.
Um, and so something I thought about earlier today was when you're in service at that time. It's not that your opinion doesn't matter. It's not that your vote doesn't matter.
Right.
But the reality is when you go to work the next day after an election, no matter who wins, that's the commander in chief, right? And
Agree.
so
Agree.
uh, it's a not overly interesting concept, but the fact that it exists, I found that kind of a little interesting to me. That
Agree.
even I don't support Trump. Before we get the policy perspective, right? Mostly from is a human to human perspective, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I don't align with him morally, which
Yeah.
is fine. There's a lot of people in the world I don't align with morally, but
Yeah.
think that I was in when he was president. Was I in when he was president? Yeah, I was in when he was president the first time.
Hmm.
Um, can't say a lot of his policies affected me in that time frame, in that moment.
Yeah.
Uh, but for him to come back later on, I think it would be, another interesting fact. Me going back into the military, him being back in the commander in chief, that would be interesting. But there's a lot of people out there who have who have predicted those elections over the last like decade. Right, this professor, I think he's in Massachusetts or New Hampshire.
Yeah.
This 2000, I think, 2000, he's predicted the correct, all but one. I think he's 9 out of 10 out of the last 10 elections. He's 9 for 10. And the one he did get wrong was Al Gore Bush, right? For him, he
Yeah.
was saying, but Al Gore actually had the popular vote.
Yes.
So, I got a wrong popular vote wise. The electoral
Yeah.
college was who they wanted to vote
And,
for.
and I also believe, not to cut you off, I also believe that if the vote continued to count, as opposed to the Supreme Court stopping it, I do believe eventually, when all the votes were counted, that Gore would have won that race by the same 537 votes that he lost Florida by. So I think that was also the possibility as well. So yeah, he is the professor was absolutely right. He's been spot on for a while, and I think
Yeah.
he might be spot on for this particular case as well. So we'll
We'll
definitely see. But it's
find out in a couple hours, couple of days,
absolutely,
if you're right.
absolutely,
And brothers, you don't know. this individual has candidate Harris pulling a win tonight or today or through this election, and so but we'll find out, right? Either he'll go uh, 10 for 11, or he's about to go 8 for 11 or
Yeah,
9 for, excuse me.
not
So
problem. Yeah,
we'll figure out. And some other polls, other interesting ways that you can use statistics to kind of identify, or probability to kind of identify, hey, can the candidate pull it out? And even NPR was talking about this a few weeks ago. They're like, I can't remember the exact predicting factor, um, but they also talked about a Harris pulling out. So not to sway anyone in any direction right here, and of course we want to support our brothers here. I can admit myself, I have some a few, I would say, conservative thoughts on like fiscal responsibility, things of that nature. But we'll definitely see. According to ABC News right now, they have Harris, Trump up about 64% of the vote in Indiana.
Trump
Um,
just won Florida.
so we'll see. He just won Florida. That
He
was
just won
about.
Florida. Yeah,
Uh, so
that's
right now,
cool.
if you're not tracking it, brothers, um, they have 23 electoral votes going for Trump so far, and about 3 going to Kamala Harris.
Mhm. As of right now, so far, it's coming in hot and heavy with these election results. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to
Might
figure
be a
out.
landslide. You don't know. Trump might just landslide her or push her out or roll her out. It might be
Yeah,
a
it's
quick
possible.
we thought.
All right, so a lot of these elections, a lot of the races in these states are going the exact way that everyone has projected so far.
Yeah.
It looks at. Give me 1 second. I think they're almost done with much of.
I also want to preface a
So
lot of these early indicators. These are votes that are less than 30% in for the state, right? And so don't
yeah,
it's not a huge identifier will that person win that state or not. A lot of votes aren't in, so we'll see what happens.
yeah. So right now, um, eh, all right, all right. So as of right now, currently, it looks as if Trump has 86 electoral votes. Harris currently has 35. Hold on 1 second.
They have
And,
Trump projected to win
and
and Alabama.
New Hampshire. So right now, Trump
And
has the following states. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. Trump has the current states are Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, Florida, Tennessee, Missouri, Alabama, and Oklahoma. Harris currently has won the states of Washington, D.C., our capital, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Vermont currently. The race so far in regard to the following states are too early to call: Georgia, Delaware, New Hampshire, Maine, um, Mississippi, Rhode Island, PA, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New Jersey, and Illinois. And while they are too early to call, I want to take a second to kind of, and I'm going to get into the Senate races and so on and so forth. It is important, everyone who is watching this the stream. Number one, thank you for the support. But two, um, Maine and Nebraska are two very interesting states because these particular states are what we call are fractioned. In other words, um, even you can win a section of Maryland and for the Democrats, and then one particular section can be won by the Democrats. I mean the Republicans, so on and so forth. The same thing in Nebraska as well. So it's not a win all type of state. So the reason why Maine won't really be decided until a little bit later is when all the votes are in. Then they're going to distribute the amount of electoral votes accordingly. And normally, um, two electoral votes normally goes to the Republican Party or Republican candidate, and one will go to the Democrat candidate. That's the normal. concept that's been going on for the past 20 plus years, and so is Nebraska. It's the same concept overall. So that's going to be important to kind of put into your memory banks. Um, and now a couple of the Senate races are coming in, and again, so far, um, no surprises so far. Everyone who was slated to win their races so far on the Senate side has won their races so far. Right now, it is nip and tuck in Ohio. That is a crucial state for the Senate race between the incumbent Democrat Brown and the challenger Moreno. Um, that's going to be a critical one. The one in Pennsylvania for that Senate race is super critical between Casey, the incumbent, and McCormick, who ran for this other Senate seat, but lost that Senate seat opportunity. And so far, that's where we at right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting to watch all this happen in real time. The older you get, the more, I guess, involved or interested you become in it.
Mm,
I remember younger where it's like, hey, that's whatever, it's another night. But now I definitely see myself, a cup of coffee or whatever, sitting here watching this all night to kind of see. I mean, not even because I'm rooting so happy for one particular candidate, but it's
mm,
because you would like to see this outcome. Like democracy in action is always a cool thing. So we
agreed.
do have a question from our brother Ricky, and that is, do you believe we should have contingency plans for either candidate if they were to get elected tonight? What real life implications do you see on both sides?
That's an excellent question, brother. I think it depends on how you look at it. I think the easy part, at least I'm gonna speak for me. I'm I'm unabashedly um, voted for Harris Waltz. Um, Now I want to caveat this, gentlemen. I am not in favor of the two-party system. Not by any stretch of the imagination. I think there has to be some type of equity in regards of opportunity for independent parties. With that being said, in regards to contingency and your question, sir, um, this is how I look at it. For me, if Trump wins, um, the contingency plan for you, for at least for me and my family, will be number one to be able to stockpile in regards of really putting a lot of focus in on savings and working the stock market accordingly with safer stocks as opposed to other concepts of that nature. Being able to um, say to ourselves, if he wins, prices are going to go up. It's just a natural fact, especially when it comes to tariffs. So budgeting is going to be critical for myself, for my family, even for my friends as well. So it's getting into the mindset of understanding that your normal everyday wants and need that you go to the store for is going to be higher, whether it's a percentage point or a couple. That's going to be a mindset of that. And next is if you're in a state where um, women's rights, in particular for the abortion rights and health care, are not codified by the state. Um, you're going to need to know um, and be very close to their doctors and to understand the ramifications for health purposes on that end. Um, and that's how I would look at it overall. Then for education, um, I would be, if you have a kid who is obviously in elementary, middle, or high school, um, you know, just make sure that you're on top of the game in regards of education. Their school choice isn't going to happen the way that the Republican Party wants it to, or even the Democratic Party wants it to. But that's how I look at it. in regards of contingency, at least on that end. Um, if,
Yeah.
If Harris wins, um, I would venture to say that I would be um, I would really look out for op- either opportunities that would be available versus not available pertaining to immigration. I would really watch for that. What are the true policies that she can put in or can help put in? That's the key word, help put in, because everything is going to be predicated upon Congress. Um, if the Senate flips red, um, it's going to be extremely difficult for Harris to get in the individuals that she wants within her cabinet due to the resistance by the Republican Party. Um, in the House, more likely it may flip back to the blue, but I think it's highly unlikely. So you may have a Congress that will be totally flipped red to a blue how a blue White House. So I think you're going to be ready to see a lot of resistance and some hikes in regards of prices for a short period of time due to um, the inconsistencies regarding the House and the Senate ideology versus the White House. So be prepared for those concepts, brother Montgomery.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your that detailed explanation and the context you gave around that. I think for me, it's super. Mine's probably more surface level than anything. But I don't. I personally don't think you need necessarily a contingency plan for a presidential election per se, unless you're very into specific individual policies and you don't want to be a part of it in any shape or form. I think a reality, at least from my perspective, is that I'll speak about for me. I'll speak for myself. I'm so far down on a totem pole that what policy wise that they could implement, it won't be as direct versus and we'll compare it to like my local election. So those are the ones I personally pay attention to more. Those are the ones I have more influence in with my vote. And then also those are the elections that usually impact me a lot bigger, like property tax, things of that nature. And so those are the ones I pay more attention to and come up with a contingency plan. But then I guess the definite how do you want to define contingency plan? Like what much can
Right,
we do?
right,
So when we talk contingency plan, I don't think you need to go into a bunker with your 40 gallons of water, 10 gallons of gasoline, and food supplies. I don't think that's necessary at all. I don't think Armageddon
yeah,
personally. I don't think Armageddon would happen if Trump or President Harris wins, or candidate Harris wins. And, I don't think that's a reality. But I always tell people, you vote for the individual that gives you the best chance, right? So even if
mhm,
my chance was slimmer with another candidate, I would always bet on black, which is myself, right? I'm always going to bet on me,
right, right,
come out on the other end. So yeah, definitely don't think that we need a contingency plan. But also, an interesting thing is like depending on. And Don, I'm really glad you gave thoughts on both candidate, because I think the second part to Ricky's question is about what is the real life implications do you see on both sides?
mhm,
Um, you know, I think Trump's the tariffs that he's potentially looking to implement. Definitely. I was actually looking at this yesterday. It may not work the way people perceive it to work or think it would work, right?
right,
An interesting study I was looking at the other day is when this idea of like trickle down economics, it doesn't actually work the way we want it to, right? We've seen time and time again that these big businesses, when they give an opportunity, at least financially, to put more money into the employee's pocket, they choose either the executives, shareholders, maybe some R&D stuff, but they pass along costs to the consumer, but they never find a way to necessarily reduce the cost for the consumer, right? And so they're always looking to profits over people, and so I don't believe that his current economic plans and there's multiple things to his plan. Like, I don't think the tariffs aren't the main point. I believe he has multiple things. I'm not super well versed in Donald's plan,
yeah,
but at least the tariff proportion may not work as we as it's perceived to work, right? There requires a lot of downfalls that come from that. Um, I'm also a fiscally responsible individual, so costs. I don't have kids. I don't have a wife. We both work full time. My costs are different than the next person's, and so
Yeah.
um, I'm able to save more. You know, a person to watch is really interesting what he invests in and what he doesn't invest in. Um, uh, what's my man name? Warren Buffett, right? You know,
Yes. Yes.
Berkshire Hathaway. I think they have about it's over $400 billion in cash reserves right now, right? He's been pulling out, selling off a lot of his shares, and building cash reserve. I thought when I saw that number a few days ago, that was super interesting. Um, his ability to come up with a contingency plan is way different than mine, right? And so that's
Mhm.
another issue. Another thought is like, what can I do? Donald. I guess a second question, a secondary question I have for you too is like, what can we do at our current level? And I'm sure there's some millionaire IOTAs out there. I can admit I'm not one of them. And so, but with
You're
our
not.
financial restraints,
Yeah.
what can I do to put myself and my family in the best situation um, if the individual who is in charge of the country creates policies so through executive order or again if it's Donald maybe he has support of the Supreme Court maybe he has support of the Senate and House
Yeah.
if they pass some policy that I disagree with, what can I do to best support myself?
It's a great question, brother. Number one, this is nothing against you or anyone else. It's important to kind of know what tariffs are because
Right, yes.
there there's this people use these words and terms, and it's kind of people start feeling like it's kind of this innocuous term that people are utilizing, and it's really not. So, you know, so the Brookings Institute, which is a very good think tank,
Very
states that
nonpartisan, not with anyone.
nonpartisan to overall. Now, I want to be clear about something, gentlemen, and anyone else who's watching the stream, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or any other platform. Be careful on the sources that you use in regards of information you obtain. I tell my students who I teach online, whether it's in Morocco or it's all over the United States, Massachusetts, or so on and so forth, the sources are important. I look at the Heritage Foundation and Cato Institute, you know, with a side eye because they lean left to far left. Um, if I'm looking at concepts like the Huffington Post, I kind of squint a little because it's far to the left. That's important to know. So Brookings Institute that has both Democrats and Republican researchers on there state that tariffs itself um, shows that large scale tariffs results in significant declines in domestic output
Mm,
and productivity, higher unemployment, and more inequity or inequality in real exchange rate appreciation, implying a loss of like international competitiveness while having only minimal effects on trade balance. In other words, what happens is when you have a large tariff on an item, the cost goes to you as the consumer.
yeah.
Um, a perfect example is soybeans. I utilize in the economic class. China wants to try to get as much soybeans from the United States. We provide the bulk of soybeans to China overall. If there's a tariff, then the farmer has to hike up the prices accordingly for the goods and services to us as well in order to gain the profit that he normally would gain because there is a large tariff that's been placed upon China itself. Now,
Yeah.
China has placed a similar tariff, ironically, on iron and steel, which we get from China. So we get the bulk of of the of the backlash from it. So to answer your question, brother Montgomery, what can you do? Number one, um, as you and I, as we talked about before, both of us are fiscally conservative. Um, I I like to balance my checkbook. I want to make sure I'm good on all levels. I have stocks. I have stocks, and it's important that number one, don't bleed out your stocks. We get to the
Facts.
point where we may be low on money. You know, I I have Robinhood and I have multiple stocks that I have in my portfolio. I have real estate REITs. I have, which I get residuals. I get money every quarter. I have other stocks like from marijuana, medicinal marijuana from different locations that pays me back. Right.
Right.
I keep it there. As tempted as I am to take out, I have to file taxes. And every time I take that money out, I am paying a tax on the back end when I do my taxes. So it's really important to really be able to invest accordingly. And when there is a dire need to take out not just enough, but maybe 5 to 8% more than you actually need as a fallback. Um, and number two, and with that simultaneously is the concept of in your mind, I'm going to pay more for certain items that I normally wouldn't.
Right.
Your eggs, your beef, your deodorant, right? Things of that nature. I'm going to pay just a bit more because of these concepts. So that's how I'll go about with this perspective overall to prepare ourselves. But other than that, this is not going to be a situation where we're going to be reliving the perspective of I Am Legend.
Right.
Like we're alone, with our dog, and we're roaming around Baton Rouge or H Town or New Orleans trying to find food and talking to ourselves in an old, blockbuster, right? So we're not going to be in that situation. However, we are going to be in a situation where money is going to be tight, whether it's going to be for a short period of time or for an elongated period of time. But the good thing about it is this: a lot of the interest rates have decreased by 0.5% over the past year, which is good for us, is also good for the consumers regarding your credit cards. It's good in regards of home loans. It's good in regard for car loans and so on and so forth. So it's getting better, but patience is the key. And too many people are not as patient as we should be. But that's what I would say. That's an elongated answer for you, but that's what I
Right.
would say about doing that.
No, no, I appreciate it. It's always good to hear someone else's perspective on how to best prepare yourself for kind of the unknown, the known and unknown, right? The known is the fact that life continues. You go down the road, you get a little older, and you continue to move through the motions. The unknown is factors that can at any time appear. Whether it's some kind of financial stress or a random bill you are expecting, someone needs some help with some maybe some financial support.
Yep.
But it's always good to have these conversations, even when you have various contentious debates that are happening in real time, like an election. And so, no, I definitely appreciate the perspective. A really good, I know we kind of beat this topic up, but a really good example of how tariffs work that I saw that the other day was thinking about washing machines, right? And you think about this is different brands. You have LG, Samsung. Those are overseas. You have Maytag, Maytag.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
that's an American brand. You have a few other ones, American brand. And in the past, during Trump's first administration, he placed the tariffs on specifically washing machines, right? And
Mhm.
other things like steel and whatnot. But in this sample, we use washing machines. And when he did that, the thought process was like, hey, well, we're going to make it harder financially for LG and Samsung to import washing machines here.
Yep.
And it worked, right? Those costs went up for those, so people kind of were buying those less. And the thought was like, well, now people have more money they can spend on the American-made brands. But what did those American-made brands do in
Mhm.
order to line their pockets more? Well, they supply and demand. They up the charge for their item, which is great, right? Financially, from a business perspective, I get that, right? Again, profits on
Yep.
people. Sometimes that's just inherently a part of business, depending on what business practices you decide to perform with. But the idea that again, was also create jobs. It did create some jobs too, right? It actually
Yeah.
did create some manufacturing jobs within that washing machine dryer industry. That competitors like LG and Samsung actually started opening up plants here in America, right? But you got
Yeah.
to think about some of the pros and cons with that, right? And then they you list out all the pros and cons that came from that specific tariffs on that one thing. There were more cons than were pros. So yeah, you got a few jobs. I think like 1,300 jobs, something like that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, you were able to create some more profit, but the profit went to not the people who went to the companies.
We'll finish. Yeah.
The parts, what they were charging more for parts, right? They were still importing parts from overseas. Those
Hmm.
had tariffs. And so you always have to be careful about again these assumptions. Will this one means or this one way to increase help for a specific group, specific space? Would that be the end all be all? I think time and time again we see like there's no one great answer, right? There's no one band-aid that will fix all the problems. There's layers to it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
We have a question here from our brother here. If VP Kamala Harris gets elected, she spoke about the $25,000 first-time homeowners incentive for Black men. I believe. Do you believe it's better than reparations as a whole? Um,
fuck no.
I would.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I only say that because
I would.
I just feel like mathematically reparations would be a lot
Yes.
bigger number, right? Like
Well,
this number
I
would
would.
be
You're
more.
right.
That's what I'm saying. But then it's like it's one of the weird things where you're trying to think about what is reality, what's realistic, I should say.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
or and do we believe reparations are realistic? I like to. I'm not a historian, but I try to be a
Yeah.
student of history, and
Right.
we've seen time and time again when the opportunity presents itself. Even though we have small cases, you have cases in Illinois, the city in Illinois that paid out reparations to its black residents. There's a city in California that played out. And I think the reparation board that was in California, I think they were supposed to pay out, or they agreed, or they determined like this needs to happen. I'm not sure if it actually happened, if they paid
Yeah.
anyone out, or what that happened to the money because there was money that was allocated for that. Now there was ever dispensed. I'm not sure, but the thing is, there's I don't know. It's such an interesting question because I think you should also ask yourself what are the potential consequences of that, right? So if
Yeah.
I give $25 is a small number, then I think maybe $1 million reparation check. If I give you $25,000, Donald, what are you going to do with that money?
Well,
No, I
part of that $25,000 would really to
mean,
be to save.
you're gonna
Um,
save it. We say
well,
that. I feel like we say that, and maybe you will, but we can't
part I did say part. I did say part.
part of it, right?
Yeah.
Because you have the money now. So even if you do save it, I'm not saying you won't. Let's say you do save it. If I am a business, I'm a bank. I know you have the money now.
Yeah.
What am I gonna do? Probably, I'm gonna
I,
charge. I'm gonna increase rates. I'm gonna charge you more
I agree.
because I
I
know you have
agree.
the money. You can't say you don't. I know for a fact you got 25,000. Even if
Absolutely.
even if you spent it on to pay off debt, to pay off medical bills, like you may have used that 25,000 for something you
To
actually
pay for
really
that.
need.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we know time and time again, when a business has an opportunity, so a corporation, I should say, not every business is the same. When a corporation has opportunities to look or to do better by the consumer,
Yeah.
they don't.
I
They don't.
agree. I agree. And to answer the question, similar to what Brother Montgomery said, hell no. It's not a whole lot better. Now, I will say this. Um, allow me to um FYI, real quick, off a side note, there was an amendment in Florida to legalize marijuana and to not make it a state crime, and it failed by 10 percentage points. Let's just put that out there for anybody in Florida who's living, our brothers, sisters, and so on and so forth. That's out there, and I will come back to that in a second. But to answer that question again, let me put a caveat on this, brother, in regard to this. So as someone who is a student of history, and I talked about this previously with my classes, for years. Oh, by the way, the for Florida, I'm keep going back and forth. There's also another amendment for a right to an abortion and women's health care. And so far, the yes is winning in Florida. That happens to be so kind of ironic. No to the marijuana, but possibly a win for the abortion rights part, which is still a good win anyway. So if you know your history, ladies and gentlemen, who's watching, um, former President Dwight D. Eisenhower during World War II basically stated that we're going to imprison as many Japanese American individuals and relocate them because the consequences of the World War II is too great. So we
Right.
did what what happened in Europe, but without the murdering of millions of people. In 1948, I'm going back in time, I'm trying to remember what my history from what I've been teaching. 1948 or 1949, something of that nature. Congress approved reparations for Japanese Americans at the
Yeah.
time to the atonement of either 38 to 40 million dollars. When former President Ronald Reagan got into office in 1981 within his first term, he added an extra $20,000 to those families who can show a clear lineage to their father or grandfather or great grandfather that were actually imprisoned in the internment camp in California in the West Coast. Keep this in mind. This is 1948 and 1983, if I'm not mistaken.
Arkansas.
Now, think about this, ladies and gentlemen. The fact of the matter is, while the $25,000 for a first time home buyer incentive for black families is important, it is critically important overall to understand there's much more that should be done to benefit the lineage of black families, especially for those who basically built this country for free.
Yeah.
And the problem is that, unfortunately, Congress and others try to compartmentalize the concept between what happened with Japanese internments and that of slavery. And the Republicans, to a certain extent, do a decent job in regard to trying to flip the mindset around. So while it's nice to have the $25,000 first time home buyers credit for black families, I would look at this as a step, not
Yeah.
a concept in which it is a full fledged, wholeheartedly better than a full reparational package for
Yeah.
black families with direct lineage.
Like I know I went on a tangent
No,
when
you
I
good.
question, but I'm curious to like what the plan, because when you see, I'll admit it, Ricky, I'm not well versed in if she's explained how she plans to execute this.
Yeah,
Like, will it be just a credit that the
yeah.
federal government provides to the lender directly on your
Mm.
behalf? Will they send it to you directly into your bank? Like, I don't, I'm not
I
fully
would
understand.
I
I
would
don't fully
assume,
work.
yeah, yeah, not to cut you off. I would assume that the perspective of how this will work is there's going to be documentation, whether it's online or actual documentation itself, um, to state that you are an African American, you're a first time home buyer, you're purchasing this home, or it
Mhm.
could be going through the lender, or could be going through their agent to
And
apply and help them out.
it's specifically for black families. Like, it's going to be only for
Yes,
that, or it'll be for all Americans.
well, specific for black families.
And so I'll finish about my initial thought, and then I'll go to that second thought I just had. So the initial
Yeah.
thought then like, well, you give, even if it's a home thing specific for homes, a credit, for
Hmm.
example. We're still short. They estimate they don't have the exact number, but they estimate it was between like 3 or 4 million homes, right? Or
Yeah.
3 million homes, the number of people most people can agree on.
Right.
That was short, so that's what has to get built by itself.
Hmm.
Again, the thing about this simple concept of supply and demand. Once you provide or that credit is out there, unless are they going to also create policies to keep lenders from predatory practices of what they look to charge people now? Same
Yeah.
thing with home builders. Like, what are they going to do to help manage those costs? My second thought, man, what was it? What did you say before, Donald? You said something right before. What were you
I
explaining?
was saying that the possibility of the documentation to show that they're getting that there are African Americans, they are first time home buyers, and
Yeah.
it could be they doing it, or it could be the agent, or it could be the lender. I would assume it would be either them or the agent
If
to
we
help
think
file that.
about if we think about some of the policies that have been challenged in the Supreme Court over the last 2 years, that's absolutely going to be something that's going to. I'm curious. I
Hmm.
could be wrong, but I really think that's something that could be held up in court, especially if it will be tied up in court. That's how going to work. It's going to have to work toward all the way through the Supreme Court system, up to the Supreme Court. When if it's stipulated specifically for black men or black families, right? And not
Yeah.
to say they don't deserve it, right? That's not my discussion. That's not my argument.
Right.
But just seeing how because of certain laws have been removed or certain
Mhm.
laws have been enacted, it's easier to challenge things like that in court now. And so my thought now is like, is this proposition that she's presented even possible? Is it feasible at all? Right. The answer to the question, no. I think reparations would be the thing I would rather have,
Yeah.
right? Not just for me. Again, I don't even say how they would pay that out at this point, right? Like if it's something that I could give to my kids, my grandkids, that's how my mindset works, right? I'll always be good
Yeah.
financially. But it's thinking about them, like, how can I put them in the best position if I can get them access to that kind of funding, that jump start through reparations? I'll take that over
Yeah.
a $25,000 home credit. I would have a house, so that doesn't necessarily help me. But
Yes.
do we also at a certain point do we just accept small wins and say, well, it's better than nothing? Like
Right. I think.
that become an argument too.
Yeah. I think a couple of things I want to address when it comes to that. You make some really damn good points. A couple of things I want to say. Number one, um, it's in regards of the implementation of this tax credit or this grant perspective for first time home buyers. If this is an actual grant concept, it can possibly be okay. It can still be challenged, but as a grant wise, um, I think it will be fine as a grant. Now I understand, and I caveat this in regards of there's this wealthy billionaire who sued these these amazing black women who
Feel
provided
it was
grants
they
to
sued.
minorities.
Yeah, it was Fearless Fun, black woman
Yeah,
owned
it's
out.
really fun,
That's true.
and I can understand that concept can happen. However, um, when you look at things, there's a way to go about doing this similarly to how the federal government allocates X amount of money through the Treasury going to the Department of Education, specifically entitled for HBCUs, whether it's Division One all the way down to your low level Division Three. Now,
But
that's a way to
definitely,
go about doing that, but I don't know if it's going to get certified that way. There's a way to do it. Exact way how to do it, I'm about to read up on it, but I think there is a way. But even if even if that isn't a way to do it that way, I I also look at it as much more of a calculated concept in which Harris, Walls, and the possibility of her administration would look at this in regards of you have harmed the Fearless Fund, and now you're trying to harm the opportunity for individuals to have their dream, and that is a home, which is much different than what happened in 2007, 8, um, recession where there is an abundance amount of homes being created, and you had no um, oversight by the banks.
Mhm.
Now that you have some type of oversight with banks, there's an opportunity to lessen the load of banks in regards of this. I think the banks would push for it, because that's less money that they
Yeah.
would have to send out as well. So I think you would get some help forcing this through, by the banks like J.P. Morgan Chase and Citibank and so on and so forth.
We'll see. I think so. A question that popped in my head that it's from a narrative that I've heard from other people,
Yeah,
and it's one I want to present to you, of course, so we can talk about it. But then,
yeah,
brothers, you want to comment, like Ricky's doing, please send your questions, send your
yeah.
comments,
Please
just
do.
in the
Just any
chat.
questions, too. Absolutely.
It's from this narrative that black men can't or won't support Kamala Harris because she's a woman
Mm,
or because she's a black woman.
yeah.
I think it's BS. But I'm also speaking from my own perspective. I don't think there's anything stopping us, or I don't think that is a thought that exists in black men. I think it's a false narrative that's been spread, that we don't support black women, or we won't support Kamala Harris because she's a black woman, right?
Yep.
And so, I think it's crazy. I think that would be a crazy concept to even consider, right? Like thinking about history, thinking about the black family dynamic,
Mm,
thinking how black men love their mothers,
yep.
and ain't a person in the world that let them want more than a black man.
I would
I don't
agree
care.
with that. I
I
agree with
don't care what y'all relationship is like. Me and my mother, we
that.
do for various reasons that I won't discuss here. We don't have the best relationship, but that woman, I'm gonna have her. I'll be in her corner the rest of my life, right? I'll always be
Mhm.
there for her. So I love my mother to death, but you know,
I think.
we we I support her. I know we support her. I
Yep.
feel like black men support her. You may not support her policies, so maybe that's why you don't look to vote for her in this election. But
Yeah.
I don't think an individual desire to not vote for her has anything, at least for black men, will have much to do with her gender or her race.
I would. So you brought something that came to my mind. Um, if you notice in the chat, you see a lady in here, that's kind of giving me kudos on a personal level, and by the name of Katie Babineau Alexis, which is my mother. But
So dope.
I love her more than life itself. She's an AKA, and
You Wizzle.
yeah, so she's everything to me, right? Um, you know, I I support whatever my mother wants and desires and needs. It's pretty much done. Same thing I do for my family, wife, and so on and so forth. Here's what I would say about this. I I saw I guess a town hall conversational type thing
Mhm.
with Alex Wagner in a barbershop talking to prospective um,
Oh,
um,
I saw that.
voters who are African American men.
Yeah, I saw that.
And one of the individuals was a radio personality and guy in Pennsylvania, and said that he was upset and irritated by the tone in which Barack Obama stated, um, when he was talking to many of the canvassers and the individuals in the headquarters. I want to be clear about something. While you and I believe it's bullshit in regards of black men not supporting black women, it's also not a stretch that there is a certain percentage of black men, small, maybe,
Yeah.
that does not. And the and the problem I have with this is the problem I have with this is that certain individuals within that conversation, and in another conversation later, which I'll get to in a second, to a certain extent demeaned her in regards to Kamala Harris's background. Here's the example I'm giving. In a subsequent later interview that she had, Alex Wagner from MSNBC, with prospective black voters, both men and women, but there were for Trump, talked about Kamala Harris had a lack of education, lack of experience, and concern that they want someone who is, and I quote, manly to deal with Putin. And that bothered me because number one, she went to, and I'm biased, I went to HBCU. I
Right.
believe my HBCU, the Alabama A&M University, is the greatest HBCU. But,
As we all do.
we all do when it comes to our school. But she went to Howard University, which
The Mecca.
is the preeminent black institution. She went to a top-notch law school
Yeah.
and became a lawyer. Not just that, became the DA of San Francisco, the DA of California, a senator, then a VP. And you get these individuals, and one male that I heard on the radio, on progressive radio on Sirius XM, talked about Kamala Harris when she was dating um, several guys or a couple guys years ago before she got married to Doug Emhoff. When she dated the black talk show host, the bald guy, I forgot his name. Um,
Big boy.
and no, I forgot. He had a talk show host. He was a talk show host years ago. Um, and then she dated someone else, and so on and so forth. And the guy, and excuse me for the ladies who are listening to this, the guy stated, and he quickly got off the phone, that Kamala Harris is, a garden tool.
That's crazy.
Now,
Crazy.
and the reason why I have a problem with this is because there are certain guys like him and certain guys that was in those interviews with Kamala with Alex Wagner who truly believe women as a whole shouldn't have positions of power like that. But you crapped on even further the accomplishments and what Harris did in her education and in her career to get to where she's at. And and that's a problem. Even if it's one person, it's still a problem.
Right.
And I think that's where I lie with this concept. It is a huge. Montel Williams is the guy who she did years ago. There was talk shows. Um, Big ups to my mom. So it's a problem, and that is an issue. I think it's bullshit. She is incredibly intelligent. She is, she worked to try to get to the point of where she's at. You may not like some of her decisions. No one really likes every decision that every person ever made. But the one thing I would say is that she listens to people. She will hear what you have to say. She may change her mind on certain things, which means there's an evolution. And I think women, to a greater extent, are much more of a boss than people may realize. Because, quite frankly, you know this as a married man, so do I. Our women kind of sort of run the household.
I'm new, so I'm still learning. So in my head, I was like, no.
So in the next 5 years, you'll know firsthand. And the
But my
concept,
we got to run too.
exactly, I feel you, and that's where we at. And um, it's quite interesting that these individuals are saying what they're saying because I don't believe it's the case that isn't qualified
Yeah.
or not educated for it. But when we have at least one male, whether black, white, or indifferent, are doing this about her, about any woman, we have a problem in society.
It was another barbershop interview of a news reporter did, and in real time, and maybe because the cameras that you never know,
Mhm.
but in real time, the barber she was talking to, she asked him the question like, hey, could you vote for a woman? Initially he was hesitant, like, I don't know, man. I think he said something about emotions and whatever.
Hmm.
But then he paused. He was like, actually, maybe. I think he mentioned, like, my wife runs a household. He's like, well, I guess technically, yeah. So if a woman can run a household, she can run a country.
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
so
Yes.
yeah, I think to your point, yeah, I think the existence of the narrative is I don't agree with it. I don't think it's encompassing the thoughts of all black men. Obviously, I can't speak for the entire black male population, but
Yeah.
I would definitely argue or feel comfortable saying that a vast majority of us w- would not vote for her because of her gender or because of her race. Again,
Correct.
you may not vote for her policies. You may vote against her because maybe she's not giving you enough. If you don't feel like she's giving you enough, that's fine. But yeah, I don't think, at least for black men, I don't think her race or her gender is the issue at hand.
No, I
Um,
don't think so either. It should, at least it shouldn't be. In my personal viewpoint, it shouldn't be. I mean, women were governors. Women have been governors of several states. Overall, senators have been secretary of state. So,
I'm young enough for me it's like, yeah, women can do anything. It doesn't matter. I'm
yeah,
not so I guess I'm not as old as or seasoned. Excuse me, brothers. I'm not as seasoned
seasoned.
as
Yes, seasoned.
other men in the population around. So my viewpoints aren't as skewed or influenced.
No,
But
I'm with that um, as well. My perspective on it is that um, a further perspective is that look, women have been senators, representatives,
yeah,
governors. We had two females that were Secretary of State. We had several females that were the UN secretary, who deal with individuals on a global scale, and done an excellent job with that. So to say that a woman could not run the nation is absolutely false. It's ridiculous. But
I think I think that everyone's flawed within politics. I think
mhm,
the reality doesn't matter your gender, your race, or ethnicity.
I agree.
That positions, there are going to be people who vastly disagree with you
Mhm,
and policies you make on each side of the aisle. People who will be disappointed on each side of the aisle what decisions you make. I think no matter what you do,
yep.
um, that I think the reality of leadership in general, right? That's one thing I learned from my time in leadership, that your decisions, whether good or bad, and they can be subjective sometimes, whether good or bad,
Yep.
um, they're not going to agree with everybody. Everyone's going to agree with it, and so it's a tough job, right? It's
Right.
want it to be it's a service job per se, um, but I think a reality is it's keep it simple. It's hard, man. Like I couldn't even imagine what it's like. Obviously, so I used to have aspirations to be in some political positions on a federal level. I don't think I want to do that anymore in my life. But I think
Yeah, I
I know
wouldn't.
how hard it can be for leadership of 20, 30 people. I cannot fucking imagine the pressure or what the day to day you have to deal with when you're just a congressional, you know what I'm saying? Like you're
Yeah,
just from a district of
absolutely.
where from 6 figures to a million to 7 figures. You're a district representative. And you have to like in essence you're trying to appease all the people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the way we do politics now, I always tell one of my close friends, like, whether a candidate is blue or red, the party affiliation has nothing to do with the fact that they are there to serve me. If I'm in your district, if I'm in your state, you're there to
Hmm.
serve me. My interests still matter, whether I voted for you or not. It doesn't matter. My interests, my needs, my desires are still relevant to your to you. You're there. You're not there just there to serve people who voted for you. Like, I don't think that's like if I'm wrong, no, but I don't think that's
Yeah,
how that's supposed to work. Like, hey,
I
you
agree
know,
with that.
I'm the only
That's
totally there for people who voted for. Everyone else is gonna share the luck. Like that's not how that works.
yeah.
But unfortunately, they're always trying to appease the need for to the vote. So they're looking for to support, to provide, to assist those who they feel want to vote for them the next cycle, right? To make sure that they're still in place. And so, I mean, that's a whole other conversation around like term limits and all those other things. But yeah, I don't think I would want to be a part of that space because I couldn't imagine the pressure that comes with that and the personality of individual you have to be to even want to be in that is interesting. Yeah,
I agree with that. I
that's my
agree with
take.
that. Um, let's see. Looks like couple things, starting to take shape. Um, it's close in North Carolina. A lot
Yeah,
of the votes are coming in on excuse me, Republican wise. Most of the votes are coming in later on the back end on Democrats. We'll see what happens in North Carolina. Georgia is pretty. Georgia is pretty close as well. um, Fulton County, where the majority of the black vote happens to be, are not counted as of yet. Um, Michigan is real close as well. Harris is up, but it's close nevertheless. So is Wisconsin. So it's pretty close overall. A lot of very very close decisions. Wisconsin is real close. Even though the polls are about to close in about 3.5 minutes, some of the stuff is coming in now. So um, we'll definitely see a lot of polls are closing up again in next 3.5 minutes.
so far last tally I saw, Donald had about 100, 205 of the electoral votes. I think Kamala only had 27 or so.
Yeah, he
Uh,
has Trump has 105 and Harris has 30.
30. And so he's won, I think, 10 or 12 states. She's at about three, or
Mhm.
maybe four. And so I'm curious. I'm not a political historian, right? So I'm interested in knowing what is the kind of normal flow of election night as far as these votes coming in. Like, so is it normal for a candidate to get a decent majority, and then later on we see a rally by the other candidate, or there's normally a tit for tat kind of thing? What's the typical, the average flow of how the votes, not necessarily who they go to, but like the amount that come in? Is this a sign that
Mhm.
is going to pull this victory out since he seems to be, 40, 50 electoral votes ahead already?
Yeah. So um, what's going to happen is it's going to be much more of a trickle. That's going to come in. Let me backtrack a second. There's going to be some heavy votes coming in when it comes to certain states, whether it's very blue related or red related. I think the only time it's not doing that as of right now is because there are um, polls that really take their time to vote to count the votes.
Right.
Specifically, the mail-in votes um, come in large swaths, and then they take their time each precinct wise, which is why you still have Illinois, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Mississippi, Maine, New Hampshire, and Georgia still on the back burner. So you're going to get good swaths coming in. um, you'll get a lot of too early to call votes coming in or calls. And I think, for instance, like Michigan, Arizona, and Wisconsin is closing in within the next 2 minutes. So I don't think we're going to get a decision within those three states. Um,
Okay.
all three, I believe, will be too early to call, but you will know who is up and also which precincts, to a certain extent, have put their stuff in and been counted, and which areas within those states they are actually they are in favor of whether it's the red part or blue part of each particular state. Um, so that's where we at right now. It looks as if in Florida the um, the right to abortion will fail. Um, Similarly to the right to for legalizing marijuana. Now, some of you who may be watching the races um, may have seen, whether you're watching NBC or CNN, may have seen the poll where, or the concept where they counted the votes, and the no is far behind
Mm.
in Florida. I want to keep this in mind. In certain, for Florida, um, they count very heavily and very early much of these Democratic led counties first, which shows that hey, it looks as if the right to abortion for that's going to be codified in statewide in Florida will pass, but it's a heavy leaning up front, Democrat wise, and then the rest of the state trickles in bit by bit. There are heavy red areas and red districts, which is why you may see that concept of why is there a disparity and why they're counting and saying that it's going to fail. This is the main reason why. So now, Florida, constitutionally speaking, will not codify on the state level right to abortion and women's health care concepts, and nor will have marijuana to be legalized in that particular state.
Mm.
Texas just went to Donald Trump. So is North Dakota. Um, let's see,
Seems like
South
something.
Dakota, South Dakota as well.
Seems like he's pulling away.
Wyoming.
All of them went to Trump.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna talk about these in just a second. New York is too early to call, but they're slow. They're naturally slow. So is Iowa, which is ironic. Iowa is too early to call right now, and so is Minnesota. Um, Nebraska is also too early to call. I'm gonna talk about Nebraska in a few minutes as well in regards of it. Colorado's too early to call. Louisiana, where I'm at, is too early to call, and Kansas as well.
They're not
Um,
rocking. That's crazy.
and what else? And New Mexico. So I would have a couple things are happening here right now. Trump has 154 to Harris 30. I want people to that's watching this to understand a couple things. Number one, um, certain states um, are very slow to come in. Right now, Georgia, 2/3 of Georgia is already in. Trump is leading. However, we're waiting on the blue areas to come in right now. North Carolina, a little bit over half. Pennsylvania, and Trump is leading there. Pennsylvania, about almost a quarter, and Kamala Harris is up for right now in that state currently. This is also another important concept where in the state of Texas, Ted Cruz is currently leading with about 58% in. He is leading by a couple 100,000 votes, which is still close. Um, in Arizona, the Senate races are too early to call, and so is a Senate race in Wisconsin with the incumbent Democrat Tammy Baldwin. Let me get back to what I was going to say earlier. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, these particular states itself are very, very slow in regards of counting the votes itself. Excuse me. So it's going to be a little bit. However, I would say this: Illinois, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, um, New York, um, Colorado. I think and Minnesota. I personally believe you can go ahead and pencil them in as blue states. I would
Okay.
pencil them in as blue. They just take time. Definitely Mississippi, um, um, and will definitely be Kansas. In my personal opinion, will also be red. I think Nebraska will have. I think Nebraska will be a split. And what I mean by a split is because they have a split vote perspective in Nebraska. Um, so right now, Kamala Harris is leading. However, I do believe that what's going to happen is um, Trump will win the majority of the electoral votes, and Kamala Harris will win that one little section of Nebraska. That's going to take some time. Same thing for Maine. That's going to happen as well. I am incredibly interested in seeing what happens in Pennsylvania, and ironically, believe it or not, in New Mexico. New Mexico, in my personal opinion, is a bit of a state that as a purple state that can go red one area to blue in another. Um, I'm interested in that particular state as well. In regards to the Senate races, it's very close. And I want to ask you a question because I know you're in Texas. Um, between Cruz and Allred, right now Allred is down by a little bit over 200,000 votes as of right now, with 58% in as of now. How do you feel about that particular race and your viewpoints in regards of Cruz and Allred?
I think and maybe I say this not to be funny, but what is, I think the phrase is the testament of a man is by his character.
Hmm.
Some lines. Hold on, stop. Be quiet. And so, the things that the rhetoric that's come out of Cruz's mouth, the the way he's handling himself professionally, um, isn't necessarily the character of an individual that I would support. And then you go to his policies that he supported or he's pushed through uh, things in regards to border support. He has looked for ways to create more job opportunity for Texans. So that's always good. But it's his support for other legislation within Texas, abortion bans, so on and so forth. So those are issues or reasons for why I want to support him, why I didn't support him. I'll be clear, I didn't vote for him. I voted for the Democratic candidate, which I'll also be transparent. Before this, I didn't know a lot about him. I had to actually spend some time looking him up. Um,
Hmm.
'Cause I didn't know too much about the gentleman prior to this election cycle. And so uh, I am I wasn't overly hopeful. I mean, the reality, you got to know where you live, right?
Yeah.
So, being the type of state that Texas is, wasn't overly hopeful that he would pull a victory out. But you know, you can always vote. You can only vote for the individual that you feel speaks to you the best. And
Right.
uh, I don't know. I think some of the my earlier comment when we just saw like the advertisements, the way that politicians or candidates going at each other through advertisements. I mean, even the ones that they don't prove directly, either ones are paid for on their behalf, right, by
Hmm.
other PACs. Man, it was crazy. Some of the things they were saying about one another. And again, I'm not a very super seasoned person. I'm only 32 years old,
Yeah.
but I still just don't remember. I've only been voting since my first election I could vote in was Obama's first race. Um,
Hmm.
I still don't remember people talking about the next person like that, like in this degree, and so it's kind of crazy. That's kind of where we're at. So I know that
Right.
wasn't your initial question, right? But I think so. I don't agree with Ted Cruz. I think he's done enough at this point. I think we can pass the baton. I'm not a fan of lifelong politicians, and so
Yeah.
I'm definitely an advocate for term limits. I think he's reached his limit. I think we can move on to somebody else, let another individual kind of take the reins for a while. Um, but yeah, man, I don't agree with that. And then I still think that people like Ted Cruz, they pander to the individuals that provide them the votes for
Absolutely.
success. And so that's the
Absolutely.
reason why I don't vote for him, because he doesn't even it, yeah, it doesn't help. It doesn't I think that method, that methodology that people use, I'm only going to support those who vote for me. I think it's
Yeah.
incredibly selfish. I think it goes against part of you being a public servant, right? Like imagine if a firefighter, imagine there's a fire, the firefighter shows up. Like, hey man, you're on the wrong side of the street. We only pander to Station 8. We, our block side. That'd
Yeah.
be crazy. I was on fire. Or
That'd
you're
be
having a heart
crazy.
attack right there. They can help you, but they don't,
Mhm.
because your taxes or whatever, is outside the zip code. That's insane to me, right?
Yeah.
And so I want it. I don't like that. I disagree. Use the correct terminology. I disagree with that thought process, and I just really wish that individual like a Ted Cruz, who, in my opinion, unless he does, because he's realigned himself, because initially he was against Trump. Unless he
Yeah.
now that he's realigned himself with Trump's rhetoric, right? Trumpism. He has the support of those voters for now, right? And we've seen like that can sway. Trump waves a magic hand, and that support can go away real
Yeah.
quick,
Yeah.
right? We've seen it happen before,
Right.
and so as long as he has that, I think he'll always have a job. That's for sure. Um,
Yeah.
I would like to see someone else get in there, even if they're Republican. I think that's what I was trying to say earlier. Even if they're not Democratic, I would like to see someone else in there. At this point, I think again, Ted Cruz has done his good deed to the public. I think someone else, it's time for them to leave for a little while. Um,
Yeah.
so
I'm
yeah.
with you on that. I'm look. The concept of the character of the man means a lot to me as well. Um. By the way, South Carolina just went to Trump. Um. I am. Um. If an individual, you know, disrespects my father, let's say I'm close to my father, and you disrespect my father, you disrespect my wife, um, you don't really fight back. You you you're in a crisis with um, Mississippi just went to um, Trump. Um, you don't fight for them. You you're in the middle of a crisis in Texas, and the first thing you do is you hop on a plane to Mexico,
Yeah,
but you rail against Mexico at the same time at the border. But what's worse than just hopping on a plane to Mexico is you put the blame on your child because they want to go to Mexico. Let me go ahead and blame my child for this. Um, he is one of the worst of the worst. Um, and because you don't stand up for your family, you don't stand up for your wife or for your father. You put blame on your child because you got caught at an airport leaving your constituents to go to
yeah,
to go to Florida to Mexico, um, and and then after you supposedly try to fight back against Trump in 2016 election, you go and you go to the phone bank and you call on behalf of Trump, and you know you kowtow to him after the fact. So I think he is one of the individuals that happens to be the worst of the worst. I also will go into in agreement with you. Lifelong politicians are irritating, and um, and they should not have be lifelong politicians this long. Um, Mitch McConnell should not
yo,
be in Congress for 8,000 years.
he's a
Um,
god tired, bro.
and I was critical, and I don't like talking about people when they're no longer here and pass away.
I didn't even say.
Um, you know, you know, Harry Reid. As much as I respect Harry Reid, the
Yeah.
former Democratic leader in the Senate. It was far too long him being in there. The one of the most racist Republicans of all time, from South Carolina. Um, God, I can't think of his name right now. It just left my mind. He was in a wheelchair, old and decrepit, still in the House of Representatives, not wanting to relinquish that seat.
Sound like someone
Um,
else I know on the Democrat side. She did the same thing.
it's I'm sorry, Strom Thurmond. Strom Thurmond is his name, and it shouldn't be that way.
No.
And I was 100% agree with you on that perspective. Um, so that's how I look at Ted Cruz and that situation is there. But
Not Nat Helms.
yeah, yeah.
It was who was it? It was a Democratic senator from California. She
Oh, Dianne Feinstein.
yes, yeah, yeah. In the wheelchair. Man,
Hmm.
it's retired. It's cool.
And she
It's,
passed away not that long thereafter. She
but
passed away
I
not that long.
also to a certain degree I get it. Like once you've been doing something for so long, it becomes like a part of your DNA. It really
Correct.
is really the thing that is kind of keeping you alive.
Hmm.
Love, yeah, yeah, because purpose becomes that. Purpose becomes your like your life. What do you call that? Like purpose becomes your I guess it becomes your everything, man. Like
It comes
it's
to your identity to a certain extent.
your identity. It becomes the thing that wakes you up in the morning. Right? It
Yeah,
becomes routine. It
your,
becomes
your,
every
your
aspect.
motivation. Yeah,
Like without it, like there's is there a you still? And
right,
so like
right.
I get it, Shirley Jackson's the Maxine Waters, I get it. Like don't get me wrong, I understand it.
Yeah,
But at the same Nancy Pelosi, Bernie Sanders, you know, he has to be almost at 90. So I get it, but like that's where there's some young men here in Houston who are proactive about getting other young men involved in politics early,
yeah,
right? So they can take those seats, right? But that in order for them to take the seats on the judges in these circuits,
yeah,
local elections, federal, like those individuals who are currently seated in there, they haven't really passed the baton.
yeah.
That has to become we have to normalize that, right? We have to normalize like, yo, it's okay for you to mentor the next group, right? Groom the next
Yes,
person.
yes.
Sheila Jackson got Russell Soul. Amanda is Amanda Green. I think that's her name. She was part of past campaigns for Sheila Lee Jackson. Like in essence, they were at one point. I feel like the narrative that Sheila was kind of a mentor to her. Sheila Lee decides to run for Houston City Mayor,
Yep,
which is fine, but that should let us know where her desires were at that time. She was ready to do something different. She was ready to
yep.
move on. Which I get that. Didn't win, and what she do? She went back. She didn't go back. She had to run again for her seat because you
Hmm.
have to remove yourself and run against an individual that, without Sheila there, may have actually won. Right? Like
Yeah,
I think Ms. Green was projected to actually win that. And she was former city council member as well. Like she did what it says. He paid her dues at that
yeah,
point to take
yeah.
over, to pass the baton. But like I said, I think these lifelong politicians, they have to be in the space. Without it, it's like the coffee. Without it, like they stop, they cease to exist.
Yeah, I agree. I totally
Yeah,
agree with that. I
I'm
totally agree with that.
I'm very transparent about this. I am petrified of death. Like I am scared. Like it literally scares me when I think about it sometimes. Like I
Yeah,
get like like oh shit. Like the fact that life can like stop. Like
yeah,
it stops. Like this the fact that there's nothing. You have your religious viewpoints. That's fine. I'm not questioning anyone's. Just for me, it's like the fact that this goes dark and you don't even know it.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you
It goes
just
away. Yep, I agree.
that's I feel like I get a feeling right now that's really scary to me. And I think for those individuals who are lifelong politicians, they have a feeling the same. Like even with their religious beliefs, I feel like they have that thought process too. Like they have that not epiphany, but like that realization, like that this thing I'm doing is keeping me alive.
Yeah,
And if I do it, I might pass away. I might wither away. I
you
don't
hold
know.
it. Yep, yep.
I would argue that. George Bush Sr. lived a long life. Jimmy Carter lived a long life after their time in service. Like, it's possible.
Hmm.
It's ways to continue on. You just really, but we have to normalize passing that baton. Like, we
Yeah,
have to
I agree
normalize
with that.
these lines because someone I heard this young lady made this argument on the show, and she was saying, again, I'm not advocating for one political party over the next with anything, right, with us here or in what I'm about to say next. But she
Yeah.
was talking about, the Republican Party they plotted for like 50 years. Like, as soon as Roe got approved, they started plotting and coming up with ways to get it removed. It took them 50 years,
Uh-huh.
but they said fast for 50 years on this one time. We're going to get this. They started think tanks. They started various pipelines to get people involved in politics. Like, they did all those things. Thank you, Stephen. They thought all instead of all these things to create the opportunity to have it removed. And what happened? They
Hmm.
got that motherfucker out of there. Like, they actually
Yeah.
did. They actually did it. Like, something that people think could never happen, could not happen. I don't say never, but something that a lot of people thought was unlikely to happen.
Hmm.
They actually did it, right? But they created. They worked as a collective for the betterment of their party or the political
Totally.
viewpoint.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
across the board, though, I think we really have to really focus on. It's okay for someone to become an advisor, and you can't tell me that I know for you can't tell me one Nancy Pelosi is not mentoring or an advisor to some of these younger politicians in the House right now. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure
think
they have style, bro.
she
They
is.
call it up
Yeah,
as advice.
yeah, she is right now. I know Hakeem Jeffries is one. And I think
He's
AOC is another. Um, in regards of the case, in regards of the late Sheila Jackson Lee, if I'm not mistaken, the which technically is a quote unquote special election because
yeah,
she did pass away.
yeah,
I think the projected winner is her daughter, Erica Lee Carter, if I'm not mistaken, and I think she
yeah.
just won. She just won that seat. I'm trying to pull it up
His
now.
going against Sylvester Turner, and
Yeah.
so yeah,
So yeah,
uh,
she I think they have her as a projected winner of that particular
fun.
race.
Like, it's cool because she's younger. She probably brings a new idea. Like, I don't have a problem with passing baton to your kin,
Yeah.
but like, you have to like get these newer ideas in there, and you because in my opinion, this is my opinion at this
Yeah.
point. I could probably make the argument through facts.
Yeah.
Some of the most powerful people in the room, you have no idea who they are because they work in the shadows through an advisory or consultant base. You know what I'm saying? Like, they
Absolutely.
in the background, and they're the real movers and shakers of like this things. This is not me promoting any kind of conspiracy theory or like because no. I'm just saying, like, you have these consultants, you have these advisors. They're the
Hmm.
ones in an individual's ear who's the face, the
Agreed.
president, congressperson. It doesn't matter who's making these outward decisions. Hey, this is what we're gonna do. They're not
Yeah.
coming out that top of their head. There's someone back there that they're confiding in, even if they're not on the public payroll or they're not the chief of staff. There's someone that they're calling up when they have a question or when they have a concern or when they're wondering, hey, what should I do? Like, though that you can't tell me that can't be the next stage for Pelosi. I mean, it probably is, but for all these other politicians who've been in Congress for 30 years. Like, we have to get these term limits in, man. We have to change this because this is ridiculous. And then like, no respect to anyone, Donald Trump, like 80, he's in his 80s. No, he's 78. He's 78.
Hmm.
Pass the baton, my brother. Like, it's cool. Like, you. It has to be a time where at these age limits too. You can't be at a certain age and still leading the country to that degree. In my personal opinion, I don't think that's productive. I also think it will never change because it's not in the
Yeah.
interest of any of the individuals to make these policy changes. It only benefits them to keep them in the seats in the current structure, especially financially, because then they can also determine when they get their own pay raises, which we
Yeah.
have no role in that, which is
They
insane.
have no pull in that whatsoever. Yeah.
Which is
It's the
insane.
craziest thing ever. Now, even when that happens, you have to wait 2 years for it to
Yeah.
happen, but they have the ability to do that. Um, with that, and brother Payne, thank you for that. Hopefully you heard what I said that her daughter, Sheila Jackson Lee, is is a projected winner and will be taking over her seat. Brother Payne, so appreciate that. just now, um, there is a first that just happened.
Oh,
And I want to get your opinions and your viewpoints on this. It's going to be a little controversial, but that's what we're here for. Have a little talk. Um, there is an open seat in the state of Delaware. Um, the Senate, the individual who was the original House member, went on to win the Senate seat in Delaware.
okay,
Um, the person who just won the House seat is named Sarah McBride.
okay,
She's a Democrat.
okay,
She will be the first openly transgender House
okay.
representative member in the House. Um, just one was just finalized. Just one was just projected as the winner by NBC, CBS, and looks like the Associated Press. So that pretty much makes it official. Um, what do you believe, or how do you believe? Um, no doubt, Brother Payne. Um, how do you believe that Sarah McBride will be treated, particularly by the opposite end of the aisle?
Man, yeah, man. I think it's unfortunate that she's going to become the brunt, of jokes and political spear campaigns, and they're going to use. She's going to be under a microscope, and any
Yeah,
policy she's a part of that they feel isn't beneficial to their constituents. So anyone that's on the other side of the aisle to their constituents or goes against their plan, they're going to use that and use her identity as a means to gather support and rallies around their ideology.
yeah,
um, which is how, unfortunately, how politics work, right? Like everyone does it. I want to be clear, like that's not just a Republic. Democrats do the same thing, right? They
absolutely,
all they use
absolutely,
they all play for the same playbook. They call it the same.
absolutely.
Like that's the crazy part to me. They call it the same plays, but the ideologies, of course, are different, right? Depending on
Hmm.
where they come from, what they represent. And so, no, I think that knowing that is unfortunate, but I man, I don't think I would. You didn't. This wasn't your question, but I'm gonna speak on it.
Please
I was
go,
saying,
please go.
I want to be against voting for anyone that was identified transgender. I don't think that's for me. That's not a determining factor. I think it'll come down to the politics,
Yep,
and what legislation or policy they're looking to enact. I think again, I'm always looking for a politician or a representative who's actually going to represent me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
if I have the understanding that all the policies that you push through, I may not fully agree with, or
yeah,
they may not be directly for me. I think that's a reality. I also want my politician or the representative to, make attempts though to create policy and legislation that is in support of me,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I understand sometimes you don't want to go against your own moral values, and so another layer to this answer is I understand why someone may not vote for her because of their moral values. Maybe they
right.
agree with that identity, that lifestyle, or they don't agree with the existence of the identity. That's their business. I can't speak on that.
Hmm.
But I do. I think. Oh man, it's crazy. It's just the word
It's
slippery slope comes to mind. The term slippery slope comes to mind. What it's like. Nah, I'm not gonna tell. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that.
okay. All right. To answer your answer, Brother Burke's question, it is her first time running. Sarah McBride was doing some research a little bit. New York just went for Kamala Harris.
Boy, you guys
So
are crazy.
New York just went for her just now while we were talking about this. So so to continue answer your question, Brother Burt, this was her first race, but what she was a quote unquote she interned. Um, she was an intern before, and if I'm not mistaken, was a an operative for Democratic Party. So she worked in the Democratic operative system, and and got the endorsement of many of Democrats out there. Um, and I think one of the main reasons that you really didn't hear that much in regards for Burke, um, excuse me, is a couple things. One, that in the state of Delaware, it's it's relatively a blue state, so um, and therefore you're going to get quite a bit of um, you're not gonna get as many individuals honing in on that particular state, especially when it comes to house races overall. Um, but she was in the Democratic sphere, if you will. Um, so that's the main thing I want to say about that. And regarding how she will be treated, I will believe that she will be treated with utmost respect on the Democratic side for obvious reasons. But I also believe that there are a certain number of individuals in the House that will do their best to castigate her and to do everything they can to demean her. And I'm going to go ahead and just say the names out loud. One of them is Marjorie Taylor Greene, um, who is
The race, by
just
the way.
as despicable as um, as Ted Cruz. The only difference is that she happens to be in Georgia and is an actual female. Other than that, her and Ted Cruz are one the same. Um, and I think there's going to be others. If Lauren Boebert wins, I think you're going to get her to castigate her. Um, and by the way, I think one other individual will castigate her. Ironically, he is in Louisiana, and ironically, he is, at least currently, the Speaker of the House, and that is Mike Johnson. So I believe you're going to get some castigations from her, from them upon her. Um, so I think that's what's going to happen. Um, to piggyback on what you said earlier, Brother Montgomery, this kind of goes on to what our RP just talked about, agreeing to getting younger faces in political seats. It is important that we can continue to say we want to put in younger faces in these seats. We have to, the Democratic Party, if we're going to continue with this two-party system, must have an intentional goal to recruit young black men, young black women to run for offices within the community.
Yeah,
How in regards of not just the state house or state senate, but also the concept of school board positions, county assessors. If you have young black women or young black men who are going to these colleges, as going into business, whether it's finance or whether it's dealing with the concept of accounting, go into roles of the assessor, go into many of these smaller roles to be able to move up the chain of command, and run for offices that are available to them. That is what I absolutely say. But you have to have an intentional plan to do so, and that becomes an issue. Um, at least for now, I do
yeah,
believe it will be. It will not be an issue if Trump loses, because the shift in the Republican Party will occur immediately to shift towards a newer generation. So all these Republicans, excuse me, who campaigned for Harris, depending on the individuals who are running next time around, you're going to see a shift towards younger, much more enthusiastic and principled Republicans, and they're going to move on in that particular fashion. And Democrats are going to have to not just keep up, but surpass them as well.
yeah. I mean, you definitely see more younger people, younger individuals winning races. I think I think his name is Maxwell
Matt
Scott
Frost
from
from
uh,
Florida.
right.
Yeah,
So today he won his election. I think he was part of a special election last cycle, and then he won
and he won
his
his. Yeah. By the way,
election.
Rhode Island just went for Kamala Harris.
Dope. And so you definitely, I think there is a wave of individuals who would like to be, well, for a younger generation, who want to be a part of politics in various fashions. Um, I don't know, man. I'm always interested in how we go about politics. Right? I think too often our exercise or us exercising our political power is through voting.
Yep.
I think that's the easiest way to do it for sure. But I think there are other means that we can go about, we can do to exercise that power, right? Those think tanks, those PACs, being those consultants, being those advisors. Like, there's different ways we can be influential and get greater outcomes, um, without necessarily always having to put our name on a ballot, if that makes sense.
It does.
So I think is the easier traditional method. We really have to focus. And when I say we, I'm talking about the Black community specifically. I'm not speaking as the ambassador or the leader of the community, but it's providing my general perspective on what are ways that we can increase our abilities to generate the political mobility that we want.
Yes.
And so I think that is should be the focus, right? That it should be the focus for a long time. If even it's always around the vote. We always have to vote. Which you should never stop doing that. I'm not saying you should ever stop doing that. I'm just saying, can we also focus on getting more people in the judges seats, different circuits,
Absolutely.
or on appeals, on Supreme, State Supreme, like what can we do here to get more people? Can we start more political action committees to finance specific campaigns? Can we create think tanks with stronger financial abilities, more reach, more researchers who can provide the data that we need, more directors within those think tanks to direct and guide the organization to again come up with the outcomes that we desire? Can we get more people involved in foreign policies? Can we get people? So
Yeah.
like, there's so many things we can do. I feel like that fall under this umbrella or this idea of political power that we just
Yep.
leave other people to figure out, other people to do, other ethnicities to take care of, other genders to take care of. But we have the ability to do the same thing.
Agreed. I agree with
Mm.
that. I think that's going to be important to kind of build infrastructure,
Yeah.
think tanks. Um, be while to a certain extent, um, our D9 brothers and sisters, we can't quote unquote officially in our capacity in certain capacities endorse X candidate for president, so on and so forth. Action committees can, but our actual organization can't because of our status. However, um, building within the D9 as well is going to be critically important in supporting each other in order to make that happen. Real quick, Kristen Gillibrand um, was reelected to the Senate in New York, and 5 minutes ago, New York just codified abortion rights in the state of New York just now. Um, and what else is happening? There are some critical seats as well, which something that I didn't really plan on talking about. I'm sorry to kind of go off the deep end a little bit, brother Montgomery. Bear with me for like 2 minutes. Um, there are a couple states um, that are critically important that falls it goes underneath the radar, and these are the attorney general seats.
Mm.
Um, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, West Virginia, Indiana, Missouri, Utah, Montana, Washington, Oregon are all on the ticket on the ballot today, including Vermont. Vermont just officially declared the Democrat will hold seat. Indiana just declared that their incumbent, who's a Republican, will hold theirs. So will West Virginia. And here's why, gentlemen and ladies who are watching and part of this podcast, this is important. The district attorney is the official quote unquote attorney for the state, and
Okay.
they have the ability to go after the federal government or to go after certain concepts pertaining to rights or pertaining to elections and so on and so forth. A perfect example several years ago in the state of Texas, Ken Paxton, who I think is vile himself, um, sued multiple times the Obama administration due to the Affordable Care Act and other concepts. While his lawsuit got booted, he was also one of the individuals who spearheaded, along with Mike Johnson, who ironically is the Speaker of the House, regarding to stop the certification of votes for certain states. Um, District attorneys are important for voting purposes because these individuals represent you as the attorneys
Okay.
who will fight, who will go to court, either fight for women's rights or against it, who will fight for civil rights or are against it, who will fight for equity and inclusion and diversity or against it. It is important that individuals, and I beg of individuals who are here, who have already voted, or maybe still in line in other states, if you have a district attorney on the ballot, don't just bypass the name. Vote your conscience and vote for the person who you believe will be able to fight for you in the court system, in the federal court system, and so on and so forth. So please be aware of that. On top of that, and the last thing also, Kamala Harris just won the state of Illinois.
Dope.
So I apologize for going off the deep end,
No,
but
no, this is all.
that was important to kind of reach out and explain that to people.
These are topics in which need to be discussed. Right, that's why we're here.
Absolutely. And
So,
by the way, a poll just happened. It seems as if um, Trump has won more Latino votes this election in the state of Pennsylvania than he did in 2020.
I have a question. Wait, hold on, let me see. Yeah, I have a question. So the narrative that I heard the other day, that came from Trump's campaign was that, um, you know, the Democrats are funneling in immigrants and signing them up so that they can register to vote.
Yeah.
And so I find that interesting. And then we'll find out. We'll see later on at the end of all this, like
Hmm.
what demographically who voted for who.
Yep.
Um, it'd be really interesting to see if the increase, the percentage of individuals who identify as Hispanic or Latino, like who vote for Trump. I think that would be fascinating. And to your point, like if you're saying more instead of Pennsylvania at least have voted for him than
Yep.
it did in the past, that's interesting. Like, 'cause then how does it just goes back to these ideas that some of these narratives are just is bullshit, and they're just there to
Right.
get you riled up around a topic. I
Agreed.
don't. I'll say I don't believe that that's what's going on at all. As far as like they're importing or they're letting people through the border to register them to vote. That's not how that works. Um, but you know, for it to happen is crazy. Was the black man vote really in jeopardy for Democrats? Oh,
Um, let me tackle what you said earlier, and then we'll get to this question in regard from Mr. Payne. Um, yeah, I saw that, and I also saw a video by some so-called reporters um, with Fox News going that Fox News played in regard to they found these immigrants from Mexico and Venezuela, so on and so forth, coming in to America, and apparently they supposedly quote unquote voted Democrat, even though they have no license and so on and so forth, can vote whatever. And and a couple independent researchers and journalists went out to try to find these people that they interviewed, that Fox News and Red States interviewed, and found some of them and couldn't find the others. However, the ones that they did find told them that we just told that news organization, of course, this is in Spanish, whatever they wanted to hear to get away from them. So the narrative, and I wouldn't even call this misinformation, the blatant lies,
Mm.
are just absolutely atrocious. And I look forward to seeing how the Latino vote, particularly the Puerto Rican voters in Pennsylvania and other states, have voted the way they did. Because I think some of them did vote early, and then what happened in Madison Square Garden, they couldn't take that vote away. But I do believe some. I think there was some who may have turned because of what happened in Madison Square Garden. To answer the question for Stephen Payne, was a black man vote really in jeopardy for Democrats? I would say yes and no. Um, I would say yes and no, and here's why I say that, uh, Brother Payne. The immense misinformation campaign by the Republicans, on top of the enormous miscalculation of of assuming that the black community, in particular black men, would fully understand everything that the Democratic Party has been saying on the campaign trail and beyond, thinking that it was crystal clear for all black men and for all black people in general, was a huge miscalculation.
Mm.
The the one thing that I love about us as black folk is, if you have specific legislation that is going to affect us as black folk in our community, in our culture, we want you to explicitly state it and explain it. And because we want this to be understood and on the record. The problem with the Democratic Party, and I'm going to take the Republicans out the way because there was a large misinformation campaign on this. The problem with the Democratic Party is that they have a problem with messaging. They have a problem with effectively explaining their point of view in a clear, concise way. And because of that, you lose a section of the populace who may have voted for you. If you could clearly explain to our community what the Chips and Science Act would do specifically for our community, you would have a larger swath of black men and black women, Latino men, Latino women, siding on the Democratic side. If you can specifically explain the benefits directly to the communities of minorities regarding the perspective of the infrastructure bill, then you would have a larger percentage of individuals that part of the minority party that would vote for it. So yes, the black male and black vote was in jeopardy from Democrats, not in regards of a majority, but if there is 5+ percentage points that's been siphoned away, that is a significant percentage that can jeopardize the opportunity for Kamala Harris to
Mhm.
win, or for even for Senate races or House races as a whole. Um, um, and I agree, Brother Burke. People should vote their conscience. People must vote based upon the candidate, president wise, House, Senate, statewide races that will benefit their community, that will benefit their homes wholeheartedly without any equivocations whatsoever. That's what should happen. And hopefully people have been doing that. Brother Montgomery.
Yeah, I mean, I think, man, I think you said everything so well. I think every vote was in jeopardy for the Democrats. I think people are kind of tired of this standard or typical interaction from the Democratic Party. I think their assumptions that the black vote will always be for them. I think that those days are gone. I think that's how it was in the past. I think currently though, people are looking for ways to hold individuals accountable, and they're doing it through the vote. Whether that's
Mhm.
not voting at all, whether that's voting for a different party, it varies by individual. But
Yep.
I think a reality is not just gender wise. I think all votes um, from the black community were a jeopardy for the Democratic Party.
Mhm.
Um, and I agree, it was Roy. You have to vote with your heart or your conscience, right? As I always say, you vote for the person that gives you the best chance. It's pretty simple for
Yeah.
me. And so, what person aligns with your thought process and your values, and kind of thinking about, commentators made it seem like we were afraid of a strong black woman. Exactly, Stephen. That's what we were talking about earlier. That's what we talked about earlier. The
Yep.
narrative that black men don't support black women. What's insane to me, like this was wild. Especially knowing again how black men feel about their mama. Like this doesn't exist, right? Like we don't. I don't think we as a collective would go against her because of that. I think it's more again her policies and maybe what she stands for, what she doesn't stand for.
Right.
So everyone has their
I
own
agree.
needs or desires. I think there's the crazy about social media is like you can watch a video and the assumption that even if it had hundreds of thousands of views, the assumption is that it's a clear representation of a group, but the reality is it can be such a small segment. It can be like 1/10 or 1/10 of a percentage. You know what I'm saying? So it can go down to like really
Yep.
instead of being 100,000 people, it's really representative of maybe 40 or 5,000 people. 5,000 people isn't a good sample size. Oh, survey wise, it is. But like 5,000 people is a great representation of 40 million, or
Yeah.
13 million. I think the black population about ranges between 13 14 million. And so you know, I don't. We definitely agreed about this earlier that that was more of a fictional. That we got the flag from our own too. It was crazy. Yeah, it's. I think some things get conflated, right? I think sometimes certain personal thoughts on an individual or individuals and how they maybe don't support, don't withhold support from certain viewpoints. The assumption
Yep.
they're going to do it in all aspects. So, like, if black men don't support black women, or they use more misogynistic um, value place of values or lead the household in that kind of in that manner, the assumption is by default that well they're not going to support Kamala Harris, right? She's exercising her rights of independence too heavily. So why we I think that narrative was BS. I don't think it's reflective of the the black man in today's society. I think we're more conscious to our women. I think we always look for ways to support our women, and so therefore, by default, we really would like we really would support a president based off policy versus um, physical physical presence. So
Yeah. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Trying to see what else is happening off right now. We just went over about Kansas going to
right,
Trump currently, and right now it's 191 for Trump, 81 for Harris. Keep in mind, we talked about trying to get rid of these states that already went out to many of them already. Um, right now. Pennsylvania is close. A difference of about 48,000 votes in favor of Kamala Harris, which you all knew was going to be close.
Super close.
Still close. Illinois is out. Still too close to call for New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island. We already have. Um, Mississippi is still out. Maine, New Hampshire, Georgia, New York, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, Colorado, New Mexico. Um, Another set of polls closed in the next 5.5 minutes. Um, and it's getting closer and closer in regards of Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Currently, North Carolina, Donald Trump is currently up by a couple thousand point votes. Um, that's on the presidential side right now. In regards to the Senate side, it looks as if, look at my notes here, um, the Senate, 34 Democrats to 44 Republicans. In the House, 82 Democrats to 129 Republicans. Um, there are many of them are coming in hot and heavy. Um, I think in the next, again, 5 minutes, we'll know even more in regards to some of these states that's going to be coming out. And again, um, I do believe Connecticut, New Jersey. I do believe that Minnesota, New York, of course. Um, I do believe Colorado. Um, that's also too early to call. Will be blue. Possibly even New Mexico. We'll definitely see. I think that's much more of a toss up. Definitely Mississippi will be in favor of Trump. Um, Georgia is very close. Um, that may go for a couple of days, to be quite frank with you. But I think you're going to see a little bit of blue come in within the next few minutes. Um, and we'll kind of go from there, see what happens. But it will be extremely close and go from there. Burks just said, I thought Harris won Connecticut. No, I'm refreshing as we speak now, and it looks as if, let me, Vermont for sure, Massachusetts was this, Rhode Island, yep, um, DC, Delaware, Maryland, yep, Maryland. So no, we don't have Connecticut yet. She is up by looks like 13 percentage points currently. But keep in mind, Brother Burke, that only 8 to 9% of the state is in for right now, but she is up by a good health by a good 13% currently, um, and kind of go from there. I will say that um, there are some votes that have that's stifling the um, the percentages and possible closures. People might scoff at this, but um, in Connecticut, Jill Stein almost has 1%. Um, Kennedy, even though he dropped out, he was still on every single ballot out there. In Connecticut, he has about a 0.5%. It may not be much off the top, but they do add up quite a bit. Um, what else? Um, in regards of New Hampshire, um, Harris only 40% in. Harris is up by 6 percentage points. Maine is coming in. Harris is up a bit, but Jill Stein has almost a point and a half percentage points. um, which almost 1.5% could have led into a figuring out who would be in the who would win Maine. Um, what else do we have?
Stop,
Um,
stop,
what else do we
stop.
have? We have same thing with Michigan. Stein almost has a 1%. Um, Virginia Stein also has almost 1%, which is about 24,000 votes in Virginia went to Stein, and yeah, about 24,000 went to Stein. And allow me to say this about the going of a tangent. So bear with me a little bit, brother Montgomery. So I personally, this is me, I have a problem with individuals voting for Jill Stein. So bear with me for a second, brothers, and let me say the why. And
This,
sisters who's watching.
this is the cat from this is West Virginia.
This is this is Jill Stein. I think she's
Oh, Jill Stein.
yeah,
I'm
Jill
sorry.
Stein. Jill Stein. So real quick, Nevada is too early to call. Utah just went to to Trump, which is expected. Montana also went to Trump, which is also expected. It's still too early to call in Georgia. Um, a 200,000 vote difference right now in Georgia, with 79% currently in with Georgia. Um, Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris is up with 43% in. Wisconsin's too close to call. Um, Kamala Harris is up. Michigan too close to call. Kamala's up as well in that. North Carolina is too early to call. Donald Trump is up currently. Arizona too early to call. Um, so let me get to Jill Stein before we get into the Senate stuff. I have a problem right now with Jill Stein, with people voting for Jill Stein, and let me explain to you why I have a problem with people voting for Jill Stein. Several weeks ago, someone endorsed Jill Stein, and if you pay attention to the news and you pay attention to um, more national news as opposed to local news, excuse me, David Duke endorsed Jill Stein. For those who don't know who David Duke is, David Duke was the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Um, and he and his cronies of the KKK endorsed Jill Stein. Part of that is strategic. However, the perspective of it, the perspective of it, I have a problem with is this: she has no true policy. She's endorsed by a KKK member, and the KKK as a whole, strategic or not. Third concept is she has been butting around with Putin and taking pictures and so on and so forth, and it's a problem. And anyone who votes for Jill Stein, I believe, and I can be called a jerk off and whatever you want to call me. I'm perfectly fine. I've been called a whole lot worse, and trust me, I will be called a whole lot worse even after that. People who vote for Jill Stein, number one, don't read a lot of politics. Two, don't research well. And three, you're voting you're voting for Jill Stein because you don't like Trump or you don't like Harris, and you think your vote will be the catalyst for change, even though you don't really look at the overall issues and policies and perspective of people. That's what I have a problem with. I'm much more. I would rather you vote for Cornel West if he was on the ballot. I would rather you vote for Chase Oliver if he was on the ballot, which he is on every single ballot. I would rather you vote for them than to actually vote for Jill Stein. And even if you vote for them, you're not going to be the catalyst of change. That's important to note.
Yeah.
So it's you have to be strategic and be thoughtful on the way that you vote and the reasons why you vote. And you have to be able to research and to absorb what you research in order for you to vote. Now I'm off my bully pulpit. Um, and currently the Senate races are 34 Democrats, 44 Republicans. In the House, 131 Republicans and 84 Democrats as we currently speak.
Yeah, I think it's on. I think Kamala's gonna pull it out, and I think but she's gonna inherit a completely red legislative body. Um,
It looks
yeah,
that way right now. I am um I am at the point where I'm truly am believing that will be the case.
yeah,
Um I do believe, even though right now Trump is leading in Virginia and in North Carolina, I believe that's going to be a wash. I think Trump is going to win one and Kamala will win another. I do believe that the other northeastern states are going to go to Kamala Harris, like Connecticut
mm,
and New Hampshire. The one electoral vote in Maine will go to her as well. New Jersey will go there. It's just taking time. I think Michigan eventually will. Wisconsin is going to be way too close. But I believe in Minnesota, only 2% in, and Trump is up, but Harris will win that, I believe. Colorado, I think she's going to win, and you know, California, Oregon, and Washington State, um, 54. That's 62 plus.
yeah.
So that's 74. Will definitely go to her. Um, in regard for those three states alone. That's 74 to 81. You're looking at um, about 150, 153 plus new. I think
Yeah.
Michigan, Minnesota. Yeah, it's gonna be close, and I don't think we won't know till maybe tomorrow evening um, to Friday who will actually be the president elect of the United States. I do believe that, as you stated before, um, if if Kamala Harris pulls it out, um, it will be a blue White House and a red Congress with a red judicial system.
Which means nothing gets done.
Yeah, it's going to be a stalemate until midterm happens, and I think um, when midterm happens, I think it's going to be incredibly important for the DNC apparatus to go in overdrive in regards of what is the agenda of the Democratic Party versus what the Republicans are doing or are not doing to further along the progress that they want to make um, for America as a whole. Um, new news comes in. The Florida state attorney, who was suspended by Ron DeSantis 2 years ago, won her seat back.
Oh, the okay, dope.
That was a special election. There was no true attorney general after Ron DeSantis, quote unquote, fired the DA. The DA took him to court and so on and so forth. That stalled.
Yeah.
She went into re-election. Florida DA went into the re-election phase and won her seat in Florida. So now, in that particular special election, she is again Florida's state Attorney General. Also just came in now. Kamala Harris just won Colorado.
So
So let's take that out now. All right. All right. So right now we're sitting at 201 for Trump, 91 for Harris. All
oh, man.
right.
Yeah, interesting race for sure. I'm not sure how long we'll be online or on this stream tonight, but
Yeah. I think the next set of results come in 20 minutes, and that's quite a bit of the West Coast. I'm sorry, 50 minutes. I'm sorry, 50 minutes. So basically, top of the hour is the entire West Coast, outside of Alaska and Hawaii. The entire West Coast will come in, um, and I think by that time we'll be even closer. Ohio just went for Donald Trump.
that's tough. But
Ohio
Slim
is
Pickens, sir.
Yeah, I think that's what brought him over 201. Um yeah, I don't so far I ironically don't see any surprises in these races so far in regard for the presidency. It's going where it normally would go to. Arizona is basically a dead lock right now. Um, Trump is up by 40 votes um, right now overall, but it looks like we should know a whole lot more in by the top of the hour in the next 48 minutes. Um, you know, Brother Payne. I don't necessarily, in regards of the amount of electoral votes. Yeah, I mean it's um 54 electoral votes are critical. The 54 plus Oregon's 8. Um, they have 62 plus the 12 of Washington, which is a 74. Um, so 165 on the West Coast plus the other states. I think by 10 p.m. Central Time, um, I believe that you're going to see both candidates well into the 200s. I'll probably say both are going to be around that 230, 240 mark. Um, and and kind of go from there. So I think that's where we at with it right now. Um, so um, so yeah, that's where we at right now. Where we at also. Republican Pete Ricketts just won the Nebraska Senate election, the special election. Ted Cruz just won re-election for the Senate. Um,
Yeah, she needs Pennsylvania, she needs Virginia.
yeah, she's gonna need she's not gonna get West Virginia. She's gonna need Virginia.
Well,
I think
Virginia.
I think you know the way the numbers looking right now, it's very close to Virginia. Just a little bit of a gap in North Carolina. Um, I think it may be red in North Carolina and blue in Virginia. Um, and kind of go from there. Angela also Brooks wins the U.S. Senate seat in Maryland, the Democrat. Um, so yeah, it is. Um, yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see so far. Right now, it's heading toward the Senate being a red in Republican lore or control, and I
Um,
think more likely will as well.
Stephen, the guy that ran against Ted, what's it, something Collins or
This
Ray
is
Collins, something like that.
yes, yeah,
So I didn't. It's hard to be Democratic here in instead of Texas. So I definitely the odds. I don't think were in his favor from the get go, but he ran the best campaign he could.
yeah. I think so. I think I think the um Democrats to a certain extent do have a they're under they're behind the eight ball um in Texas. I believe that there needs to be a much deeper ground apparatus, old school grassroots apparatus um about this um to change the direction of Texas as a whole.
Right.
Um for everybody that's here, um for Mr. Payne, Colin Allred was running against Ted Cruz. Colin Allred was a former House Democratic member, um, and he let go of his seat to run against Ted Cruz. And also, he was a former football player in the NFL. Um, for everybody who's watching this, um, um, I'll get to your question in a second, Mr. Brother Burt. At the bottom of the hour, um, we're probably going to end our stream. We have families, and as much as we both may want to, we have to also be able to kind of get ready because we have work just like all of you do as well, and be ready for that. I gotta get up super early in the morning. Um, yeah, Brother Payne, football player. We gotta get up early in the morning. I gotta be up at 5 in the morning. I know Brother Montgomery has to be up soon thereafter, more and burn midnight oil type concept. So we will more likely will pick up later on in a week, kind of do a wrap up session, and kind of talk a little bit about what happened after the election in our next Iota talk perspective. But we're going to kind of go from there. By the way, that's saying this, Iowa just went to Donald Trump as I was speaking. So
Right.
Iowa is still a red state. But we'll wrap it up at the bottom of the hour at 9:30 Central Time. As of right now, Trump has 207 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has 91, and to be quite frank with you, I believe it's going the way that we kind of thought it would. Um, Again, once much of these red states come into existence, um, regarding, these blue states, excuse me, come into existence after the vote has been tallied, you're going to see a much tighter, closer race. And then at the top of the hour, even though we will be off at 9:30 um, Central Time, um, I believe that once those votes from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and those states come in, on top of the West Coast states. You're going to see a much closer race overall. Um, um, so um, keep that in mind for those who did vote for Kamala Harris. It's going to be it's going to be either a late evening for you all, or you're going to be waiting for the next day or the day after in regards of more definitive results to come into play overall. So that's where we at right now. Um,
Yeah, it's gonna be super interesting to go to bed and wake up to the results. I think I'm really curious to how she's gonna react if she does lose. Um, will she take a play out of Trump's playbook
yeah,
and challenge this and say this, say that about the voting process, or will she be more traditional, right? And concede and say, hey, we try our best. See you guys in 4 years. And so it'll be really interesting because there's a good chance. I also want to see Trump lose, not just because I didn't vote for him, but just to see the reaction, like what
yeah,
comes from that laws. Like, what does he do next? Like, um, I think if he loses, his political career is done. Well, at least going for president wise, it should be done at that point. Because the next time he can
yeah. I
go,
think
it
so.
should be in the '80s. Like that should be it.
Yeah,
Um, I think he'll always be around though. He's not going anywhere anytime soon.
yeah.
But if he does lose the election, then what will be his next steps? What will be his route that he would take? Are we going to see another January 6th part two? Is he going to tie this thing up in the court system for a while? Like, we're kind of curious to his playbook for this one.
Yeah,
Um,
it's gonna be scary to be honest with you if that does happen. I would venture to say that if he does lose, hopefully he does. I'm not going to shy away from that. Um, the political aspirations of Donald Trump goes in the toilet.
oh
He's
yeah,
not
for
going
sure.
to come back in the next 3.5 years. Say I'm running again when he's 82, 83. It's just not feasible at all. Next, um, this is going to be a referendum on the Republican Party, like you have never seen before. When hopefully, if Donald Trump loses, you're going to see a huge referendum on the Republican Party and a shift, a significant shift should happen. Um, um, and I do believe that you're going to see, at least on the GOP side, a lot of the individuals who left the GOP
Hmm.
um, to officially say, "Yeah, I voted Democrat this time around." They're depending on who runs, will come back around. I do believe that unless a Ron DeSantis can re up his career, I think you're going to see the same individuals who decided not to um, vote Republican will stay with the Democratic Party on a larger scale. Um, but if someone, and I don't think very highly of this person. It sounds like I'm a little hypocritical as well. Um, Nikki Haley, um, type of Republican or perspective, um, you're going to see a large swath of Republicans come back around and try to support her, um,
I can
and
see that.
see if that can happen um, on that end, and kind of go from there. But that's where I see the direction of the GOP going now. The direction of the Democratic Party is just as fascinating. And again, for everybody who is on, thank you again. We will be signing off in the next 5 minutes at 9:30 Central Time, and then we'll do a little wrap up um, after the election happens and things kind of settle down a bit with our perspective. But I think that's going to be incredibly interesting to see what the Democrats are going to do. Um,
Yeah.
they are going to have to. be in a position of a start over process as well, but not as deep as the Republican Party. Um, I think that Kamala Harris will be a front runner again if she decides to run again if she loses this election. I also believe that Gavin Newsom will be in the mix. I believe that Wes Moore and Gretchen Whitmer will also be in the mix as well. Um, and kind of go from there. I do believe um, that I've been pretty steadfast on this. If Gretchen Whitmer was decided that she would want to be the vice presidential nominee with Kamala Harris, while people might scoff at it, I
Mm-hmm.
believe that Gretchen Whitmer could have solidified Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota in a blink of an eye. I think that would be a totally different situation. Um, I think there's going to be a little bit of soul searching as well, not as much in the as a GOP, but there's going to be some soul searching. But there's going to be some other individuals to come up the pike,
Yeah,
um, and kind of go from there.
it'll be interesting to see what the GOP does. I think if they do lose, I think that just solidifies the idea that Trumpism doesn't work. Like it hit a peak, and then that's it. Because if you look back at the last cycle of the elections for the midterms, where there was supposed to be, as people describe, this red wave, it didn't happen. Now, if Trump wins this, the Republic and they win the House and the Senate, and now they have the Supreme Court, then now, so maybe they predicted the arrival of the red wave too soon, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We can you can make that argument if they win tonight, because at this rate, I think it's you can make a strong argument that the House and Senate is going to be locked to be with the Republican Party.
yes,
Um,
yeah,
but if they do lose, GP does lose tonight, that does open the door to reevaluate. I will be curious to see if they go back to their traditional roots, right? As far as the narrative goes, will people like Ted Cruz go back to the previous rhetoric prior to Trump's existence? Because we all remember when Ted
yeah,
Cruz or a Lindsey Graham or a Mitch McConnell were very adamant that someone like Trump should not be president, right? And then when he won, but when it saw, it seemed like he was going to win at least. They change really fast, right, for their own existence.
yeah.
So definitely we'll be curious to see if
Agreed.
they go back to that thought process, to that old faithful, maybe you can call it,
Yeah.
that pre-Trump narratives, maybe reinvest into those Reaganomics and that means of approach to foreign policy,
Hmm.
um, just the local economy. And so I'm not sure what tonight will look like. It is still kind of close. I think
Yeah.
my team says 195, Trump 91 Harris, but I'm pretty sure I saw a graphic earlier tonight that said 199 Trump, 99 Harris. So um, it's still too early way to call it. Plenty of states out there like in California, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and others, Michigan. We can't forget about Michigan. That can really sway this in a different direction. But we'll see, man. It'll be cool. I'm actually looking forward to going to sleep tonight, not knowing the outcome. I really hope I fall asleep
Same here.
and I
Same
can wake.
here. Same here. I'll be the same way. Um, and on my end, look, when it comes to Lindsey Graham or or Ted Cruz, they're like a feather.
Yeah,
It's if the wind blows one way, they're gonna go that way. If it blows another, they're gonna follow that way
yeah,
overall. So yeah, there are multiple lists out here in regards of election concepts for everybody. For NBC, it's 207 Trump, 91 Harris. For the Associated Press, which in my personal opinion is the really the end all be all in regards of it.
yeah.
198 Trump, 112 for
Oh,
Harris.
okay. One
So it's
peaches and
that
cream.
this is what they're saying in regards of the AP. Um, my perspective for you all that's watching, um, the few that's watching, I would say this. I understand we have our moments where we want to go into our partisan ways. You may watch Fox, you may watch um, NBC or CBS or ABC. My perspective is I don't mind you doing that, but I'll also will ask you to go to the Associated Press. I will also ask you to go to PBS as well and follow them, um, because they are the ones they are quote unquote conservative in regards of the numbers that's out there, and they do an excellent job when it comes to being absolutely accurate.
Yeah.
With that being said, it is 9:30, ladies and gentlemen. We want to, at least for myself, I'm not going to speak for my brother here, but for me, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to have you listen to us, have your eyeballs on us on this monumental night. Um, we went out here good, what, 3 hours, almost 3 hours, 3 hours strong up in here. And we want to thank you for that opportunity for us to be in your homes or in your cars or in your office, wherever you are that you're listening to us, and really and listen to this conversation about politics, not just on the presidential side, but the House side, the Senate side, even the quote unquote boring district attorney side as well. So we're thankful for that on my end. Brother Montgomery, I'll let you have the last word.
No, man, I appreciate everyone who came out today. I think this was a dope episode. I'm gonna restate what our RP said. Hey, great work, great dialogue, hell of a show tonight, Donald. So always thankful for all the brothers of Iota Phi Theta that tune in to hear us give our opinions and our thoughts on various topics. And hopefully tonight, regardless of the outcome, when you wake up next morning, you still feel, accomplished, you still feel like yourself, still feel like you have the ability to go out and do great things in the community because despite what the outcome is, you have that ability. And so, so one thing, other brothers, I want to give a special shout out to Brother Gibbs for helping out with this. Shout out to Brother DJ, RRP in the South, for helping out with
Salute.
this as well. And Brother Donald, always special thank you for you for helping
Thank
coordinate this
you.
as well. I would talk, stuff has something to say. I appreciate you, brothers. And all right, it's a sign out. See you.
Later.